I'd like to take up the subject of ownership out of that same article by L. Ron Hubbard. The first thing he writes about it in this article is, when you give your child something, it's his. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a very new idea. It's his. It's not still yours. His clothes, his toys, his quarters. What has been given must remain under his exclusive control. Just like the things that you own, right? Again, there is no difference. Just imagine somebody gave you a beautiful necklace and then told you when you could wear it. Now, wait a minute, is this my necklace or what? Yeah, so this is, you can confuse a child this way by giving him something and then looking at it as if it were still yours. Yeah? He goes on like this. So he tears his shirt, wrecks his bed, breaks his fire engine. It's none of your business. Hard to do for parents. Only hard to do because we have this habit, and only hard to do because our parents did it to us. But it really isn't hard. How would you like to have somebody give you a Christmas present and then tell you day after day thereafter what you are to do with it? Even punish you if you've failed to care for it the way that the donor thinks is correct. Punish you when you don't treat it correctly. You would wreck that donor and you would ruin the present, wouldn't you? Just to get out from under this control, right? Yeah. He said, you know you would. A child wrecks your nerves when you do it to him. And that's revenge. And he cries and he pesters you and he breaks your things and he accidentally spills the milk. I always know when it's not accidental. And that makes me even more mad because I can't prove it. And he wrecks on purpose the possessions about which he is so often cautioned. My mother had the bad habit of giving me camel coats from this particular store in Amsterdam, which I knew was an expensive store. And I promptly made it into a goalpost. Because that's what you do with a coat when you're 10. You make it a goalpost and you play in the park. Well, she came all apart. And I was in trouble because of this darn coat every day until I figured it out. Let's lose the coat. Yeah. And then she thought it was a punishment to let me wear my older sister's jacket, a real hand-me-down which looked it. And I was happy as a lark. Yeah, because that was mine. And they didn't care about it. Anyway, he wrecks it on purpose, the possessions about which he has so often been cautioned. And why? Because he is fighting for his own self-determinism, his right to own, to make his weight felt in his environment. This possession is another channel by which he can be controlled. So he has to fight the possession and the controller. Have you ever noticed that kids back off when you want to give them something? That's the most surprising thing, confusing thing. Here you come with this fabulous this and that from Toys R Us, for which you spend gobs of money, and they're backing off a little bit, because they know what's attached to it. Okay, so now I have it, and I can only play with it from 4 to 6. Only in my room, not too loud, never when grandma's there, and I have to put all of it back again before so-and-so comes. There are sets of rules connected to these things. And God forbid you get a radio. Because he'll tell you where you can put it, how loud you can play it. Just imagine somebody gave you a radio and said, now you can't play it over 8 on this dial. And only the music I approve of. Just imagine. And never after 9:30. Would you just please take this radio home? No, thank you. Right? Because you'd be polite. kids can't do that. They're kind of torn. They really want the radio, and they, for a while, think maybe they can get away with it, or somehow. They have to fight shy, see? Now I get headphones, and then I can turn it up to 10, blast my eardrums off, and I can play what I want to play, and I'll hide the CDs over there, the ones that, you know, they have to be subversives. You see that? And then we wonder why they don't trust us. Well, the only way to survive is to somehow get around these suppressive parents. You never meant to be suppressive. I never thought that. But can you see that you might be viewed that way? Yeah? Wow. Somebody wanted to say something. Yes.
I have the problem where he kind of gets turned around, where I'm willing to totally let the kid have it. By then, like, you know, I'm doing well in life now. I'm actually making a lot of money. Spend a ton of money on these kids this year. Totally willing to let them have the thing. But what I don't like is the kid ruins the fire engine, or ruins the robot, or ruins whatever, and then I'm expected to fix it. And it's your toy, you fix it.
Right.
That's the kind of thing, is like, I'd be totally willing to let him have his toy. It's your toy. But why do I have to fix it?
Well, what made him think that? Have you been fixing his toy?
That's just it. Is I ended up doing it, and now I don't want to. And I try to make sure that they know that.
Well, yeah, you have to lay down the law. I used to fix toys. I don't fix toys anymore. They're yours. You wreck it, you fix it. You know, it's interesting. You said, if you do that, it will break. Well, parents do that all the time because we can think in sequences. And that's because we're not stupid. Have you noticed that you're very bright kids, because they're very bright, they floor you from time to time, right? Occasionally do something that is so stupid, you go, this can't be the same kid. Well, stupidity is the inability to predict the consequences of your actions. You can look into the future and you know what will happen if you do this. But if you say to a kid, even, if you clean this up for mommy, I will take you to the movies, he henceforth will say, are we going? Are we going? Are we going? And he say, if you clean up the kitchen, I'll take you to the movies. This is a sequence. This is a, you know, one thing and then the next thing. Well, is it time? Are we going? I said, if you clean this up, I'll take you to the movies. First you clean it up, then we go to the movies. Does he clean it up? No. Is he surprised at 7 when you say we're not going? Yes. But you said you were going to take me to the movies. If you clean it up. But you said. So what is this? Yeah? It's thinking in sequences. It's wild, huh? Yeah. They don't think in sequences. Partially the cause of that is watching television. Because in television, they start with a dead body, and then they back up in time. And then they go forward and backward and all over the place. And it isn't logical. And it's very fast and confusing. That's one thing. And then there are no direct consequences. See, Leave It to Beaver and that kind of shows, it was always an action and a consequence. And then there was a realization that's not how you do it. Then you do it the other way and you get what you want. And it went at the speed of life, and it wasn't overwhelming. Yeah? My 3 sons, it went at the speed of life, had a bit of a lesson in it. Not anymore. Yeah? In television, teenagers and young kids can do the most atrocious things and there are no consequences. It's very confusing because those are their heroes, right? I mean, these guys are stars. They want to be like that. So what's wrong with you that you always think that there should be a consequence to life? There isn't. I know, CBS told me so. And I watched 28,000 hours until I finished high school. 28,000 hours of getting the wrong idea is a lot of wrong idea. How can you compete with that? Do you spend 28,000 hours with a kid? No, not one-on-one communication. That's another thing. It would be good if you could set aside a predictable time every day or every week, if you have little time, that you are together with your kid. Always Sunday morning, you and I, till noon, is my time for you. And just sit there and listen. And maybe teach him one thing. Yeah? But no phones, nothing can interrupt it. my time with you. And they will accumulate some things through the week and then wait till Saturday or Sunday when it's time to sit with mom, and they come up with it. And that's good. Then you know what's happening in his life. Make sense? It doesn't have to be that much time, but it has to be very predictable. Because then you can wait. You can just put it on hold. You know there will be a time that mom will sit and listen. Yeah? You have to be good listeners. You were talking about these things being destroyed and you're fixing it, which is very kind. So now you have to tell them that it doesn't work that way. You're not going to do it anymore, right? Not going to do it anymore. And you might just grab the dictionary and look up the word his or your. That helps too when he takes the Legos, he's the man with the Legos, into your room. Yeah. Because that's your room. And his room is his room. And if he really understands those words, and you don't feel you have the right to get into his room and tell him to do what you want in his space with his toys and his things, he will understand that he has some freedom there and that you have some freedom over there. Yeah? And then the Legos don't come in your room.
What about the kitchen, the living room?
Well, you know, you can lay down the rules. The point is you have to get some understanding going about that. But start with your room is your room. It really is your room. And I don't tell you what to do with it. Now, I do that to an extent with mine. I don't allow apple cores, banana peels, and such things because then I get ants or mice, and they go all over the house. And I insist on a small path from the door to the window for a fire escape. And I explained that. I said, in case of fire, I must be able to get out. So I need a path. That's just part of living in this house. They took it. That's all right. Okay, one path. The rest is knee-deep. And it doesn't bother me. But actually, the older one, having always been allowed to do what she wants with her room, has a very neat room because she owns that room. It's just the little one that is still learning to do it. Yeah. Yes.
How about if you have two kids, I have two boys, 6 and 8, and they share a room. And the room is just total destruction at all times.
But it's their room.
It's their room, but, you know, there's this conflict between the two, you know, like this is his, I'm not going to pick it up, and nothing gets cleaned up, and
Yeah.
you know, they can't even play in there because it's just, you know, they have no space because it's all cluttered.
Right. That's
I've
not your
cleaned it
problem.
up a few times, but I'm not going
No.
to do it anymore.
No, don't clean it up. No. That's totally their problem. If I would have two kids living in one room, I would take some duct tape and draw a line. This is his and that is his. Really, you know? And I wouldn't even admire greatly if it's neat and make that the right thing and mess being the wrong thing. It's just none of your business. And it's hard because I know our parents didn't do that way, but every time you have a hard time getting this concept, just look at this. How would you feel if I would come in your room and give you a hard time about what you have in your room and how you arrange it? Yeah, you would have some choice words for me that we can't put on tape. And they would be appropriate. It's like, where are you coming off? Minimally. Yeah? Say, I would do that if somebody came in my room, told me what to do with it. Sometimes in the middle of a project, I know where everything is. It's none of your business. Go away. Huh?
What do you do with a family where they have a nanny and a maid and...
Fire them. Oh, that was too quick.
The room, and it has to be kept clean, and the maid comes and cleans the room, and the nanny, you know, and all of that. What do you do with that?
It's not an ideal situation because it slows that whole process of taking over down. There is no necessity level. Do you understand that? Nothing impinges. I've had a little boy like that in school, and he made a mess like you won't believe. And we talked about that. He told me he had a nanny, and he explained to me that that is actually okay to do because that gives the nanny a job. Yeah. Yeah. So the whole process of raising a child is getting him ready for life, not ready to give orders, possibly also. But at least he must be able to confront what needs to be done and get in there and do it, right? That's very much undermined if in your absence there is the surrogate mommy who gives the appearance that all's well while they're not doing what they're supposed to do. See, you cover a problem. There's a problem here. The kid is not picking up after himself, not controlling his stuff. But it doesn't show. It appears to be no problem. But there is. And you don't want to face that problem when he's a teenager, because then he can pick you up and walk out and all that. This habit pattern has to be established when he's little. Yeah? So do you have nannies and
No.
No? Oh, good. But you know about families like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is actually confusing to the child because they have no need to learn these things, clearly, because they think life's always going to be like that, you know. Yeah? You can predict that they might not have servants around them for the rest of their lives. They don't. That's how life is. Yeah? Parents who have such wonderful predict try to get this through to kids. They say, money doesn't grow on trees. Things like that. You've heard that? You know, I'm not always going to be here to catch you when you fall down or to do this or that. Save your breath. They have the living proof that money grows on trees and you are always there. Yeah? That contradicts everything they experience. What they experience is you can make the grossest boo-boos and mom and dad love you anyway. You have a room, you have food, you have clothes. If you whine long enough, you get whatever you want. Proof's in the pudding. Don't give me this theory. Doesn't work. They need real life experience. And if you don't pick up your laundry, it is on the floor and it stays there. And if you don't brush your teeth, your breath stinks and the girls don't want to kiss you. Your teeth. Yeah? You can do it for little kids, but the whole process of raising kids is handing every little bit that they need to know to survive well over, one at a time. Patiently, lovingly, remember? Yeah? And every bit that you truly handed over, you'll never have to do again. So if you find yourself repeating yourself, what do you know?
You didn't hand it over.
You didn't hand it, somehow you didn't get through.
Right. It's not
You have a question.
I was just wondering if there's a specific way that you have them learn how to be more orderly and, you know, to keep order in their room and stuff.
If we're going to get into how to teach him to be orderly, we have to understand that that is after he is willing to be orderly and he decides to be orderly and he wishes to have an orderly room. His wish, not yours. So can we agree to that?
Yeah.
So when you arrive there, then he eats out of the palm of your hand.
What if they're like oblivious to the whole idea of putting order in their room and then
Okay.
they'll never care about
That's not true. Yeah.
No.
It feels like an eternity for the parents, but if you allow him to control his space, he will eventually control his space because he had the choice to do so. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, eventually.
Well, look at it this way. Here's this woman, she's overweight. And she has various family members telling her that she shouldn't eat this and she shouldn't eat that and really don't wear that and da-da-da-da-da-da. She's more dealing with everybody's criticism of her than her weight. And it becomes an ever more difficult subject for her. Does that make sense? If everybody would just back off, she would get fat to the point where she thought, that's it. I can't stand looking like this. And it would be her decision. And guess what? She'll drop it that way, just like that. But she can't do it because somebody tells her to or makes her wrong for it. Somebody else's idea. It has to come from self. You with me? Yeah? Because otherwise, if you're controlling this person's sugar intake, the first day you're off somewhere else, he goes, this is my chance, 5 heaps, you know, because she never decided to be slim. She's just coping with this pressure. The kid never decided to have a neat room. It's just coping with mom's bug on the subject. He isn't doing anything. He's not learning anything. Let it be such a mess, and the first time one of his peers comes over and says, oh, like kids do so well, he goes, oh my goodness, that's enough. And the kid will say, I don't want to come over to your place stinks. It's a pigsty. Can we go somewhere else? He goes, ooh, if I want my friends over or admiration, I better clean this up. Done.
So you think they'll...
Oh, for sure. Sooner or later, some opinion leader is going to say something about it, and that's that. Or they'll make a decision. You can't enforce these things because you are reasoning from everything you know. And we'll pretend that people are computers. So there's this new kid, pretty little data in this computer bank. He's thinking with what he's got. You're thinking with everything you have. That's all your experience. He can't function on what's in your database. You have to put it in his database. Now he can think for himself. Yeah? 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 So you can't shortcut it and just make him have the realizations based on data that he doesn't have, because it won't be his. It's just control. You're pushing him around, and he'll resist it. You have to take the time to give him the information, you know? You can usually, when a child does something completely outrageous, pull long enough to find what information they're thinking with. What did get in the computer that they came up with this thinking? Yeah? You brought up the word ethics. Yeah? By definition, it's the contemplation of optimum survival. This is the thinking you do with the data that you have to come up with the best thing to do. Would you believe that the guy who empties out a gun in McDonald's and shoots people, that counts for him too? With the data that he has, this is the best thing to do. Now, he's pretty sick, there's no doubt about that, but that's just an extreme. When I look back in my life, I won't talk about it, but I can tell you there are some things that I'll never talk about. I don't go, oh, I can't believe I did that. But if I look back at it, at the time, with the data that I had, that seemed like a good idea to me then. Yeah? So we have children that unless you didn't get in there and give them some data that they can think with, have no data, get it from their friends, get it from Cosmopolitan, get it from the television. And if you're not pleased with that data, well, that's your mistake. You should have been there first. And they come up with some very odd conclusions. Yeah? So this teacher hat, do you see how big it is?
Yeah.
See how early it starts? Because you talk at a kid and you say, I want you to, as a teenager, who would rather hang with his friends than be home. Well, I want you to be part of the family. Well, you know, that's a reasonable request. This family has supported this kid for 14 years. But if you asked him family, could he tell you what a family is? Or would he give you something like, well, mommy, daddy, baby, dog, blah, 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 it's family. You need to know what a family is to be part of it. I asked a little boy once what his job was as a son. And he looked at me like, are you silly? Don't you know? To protect my mom from dad. Now, that explained a few things. Because Mom had been writing me some reports about his behavior, which fitted perfectly what he just voiced. But we didn't know that he was thinking with this information. Because we hadn't gotten in there early enough to teach him what his job is as a son. Now, that's worth a Sunday morning. First thing, you find out what he thinks his job is, so you know what to wipe out and erase first. And then you take the trouble to give him the truth of what is expected from him as a son. And now the two of you, on the subject of son behavior, at least have the same data in each of your computers, and you gel. You see? Not on everything, just we've now conquered son. Yeah. This mom, by the way, told me that he would interrupt whenever mom and dad talked, to the point of insanity. He would actually dance on the table, tap dancing. I mean, anything to stop him from talking. He had some notion that daddies are threats to mommies, and that's your job as a son. I don't know where he got it. It isn't even interesting. The point is we got rid of it. And then he knew what his post really was. And he's been wearing that. He's been being that ever since, very happily, because he was trying to be a good boy. And that's why he didn't know why he got in so much trouble, especially from mom, whom he was protecting. Gosh, what's the matter? Right? You see? Pretty wild, huh? So if you can spot in the behavior of your children an area that is very illogical, it is, let's narrow it down. It's not 1,000 things. It's this, that, and that. Chances are the data in your computer and his varies. And ask him, what do you think is expected from you as sister, brother, son, daughter? Yeah? Oh, tell me more about that until you have all of it. Say, I understand. Great. Now let me tell you what we want from you as son, daughter, whatever, sister, brother. And he goes, oh. And then he'll do it because he's a good guy. He was just operating off another floppy. Yeah? And you didn't put it in, so you didn't know it was there. And it clashes, and it's not handled with force again. It's not ever. Do you see how you can never conquer the data in that computer with force? Yeah? You can hit the screen and the keyboard. You can unplug the kid. Yeah? But there it is. You plug him in and got the same data that he's thinking with. It's wild, huh? So the gentle approach, and give him true data, and he'll be the gem that you need him to be. And he'll be so happy to create these good effects on you, because you just walk around smiling. He goes, gosh, I didn't know life could be so wonderful. Look at them, they just adore me. And you need that, because when they're teenagers, I've talked to a lot of parents who have teenage children. The one thing that breaks their heart more than anything is, after 14 years of figuring themselves out of the picture and being tolerant and loving and giving to these children, they now want to leave in the worst way. You know, you're nerds or something. Awful like that. You want to break somebody's heart. What a betrayal. And then they say, and after all I've done for you. And they say, yeah, that's why I'm leaving. They actually don't say that, you know. But why do they leave? Because there's a group out there that will admire them. There's that admiration again that we talked about earlier. The first thing that happens when they slide into this group or team or gang, we hope it's not true, but it happens, is the rules are laid down. This is what you are in relation to us. This is what we expect from you. They make sure there's the same thing in each computer. He is the head honcho around here. Don't ever cross him. Yeah? There is no gradient. You foul up once, it is out. Yeah? They lay down the rules. It's hard. It's unvarying. Everybody knows. And this is how you dress, and this is where you are, and we never find you in that part of town. And this is how you behave, and this is how you talk, and that's what you eat. I mean, rules. And they gobble them up. Your rules they didn't gobble up. What happened? What happened? They got admiration. Because it is one for all and all for one. And when you stick to those rules, those unvarying rules, you know where you are, you know where you stand, like the dog in his kennel, you know where you're safe. And if you stick to those rules, they'll defend you, they'll back you up, you're part of the team, nothing can happen to you, you're safe. At home it varies. When Aunt Martha is there, when Uncle Harry's there, anything goes. When Mom's tired, don't you even try it. When Dad's home, a whole new game. Yeah? And it's varied for the last 14 years. And it made no sense because there wasn't an understanding. Why don't you do that? Because I say so. Oh, give me a break. Yeah? Yeah? There's no understanding. He wasn't agreeing to anything. He was just a controlled thing in the house. And boy, after 14 years of being controlled, you want to get out from under. Yeah? So teach him, get his understanding. Teach him, get his understanding. And you will have the time to do it if you don't have to spend the time to do all the other things, like working with the effects of not teaching him and bringing him to understanding. You see how it works? All right. Now let's see where we can wrap this possession bit up. On the top here, this is in italics. Obviously, L. Ron Hubbard finds this very important. And I hope you will put it on your wall. Man is basically good. We'll start with that. Severe training drives him into non-sociability. Make sense? Man must retain his personal ability to adapt his environment to him to remain sane. A man is as safe as he is self-determined. Yeah? Do you remember we were comparing everything with slaves? Now we'll take it from the top and think of that. Man is basically good. Severe training drives him into non-sociability. Man must retain his personal ability to adapt his environment to him to remain sane. A man is as sane and as safe as he is self-determined. Make sense? Okay. So, do you feel with these little guidelines, I'll give them to you when you leave, you can see to it that your kid grows up sane and safe? Yeah? That's good. In raising a child, you must avoid training him into a social animal. The last thing you want is a good kid. A good kid is sort of a dead kid. He's buckled under, given up, saying, okay, you win, I'll play the game. You lost him, really. Yeah? This is the kid that will never amount to a whole lot either, because you taught him to buckle under nice and early. Society does wonderfully as long as we have some independent thinkers with the guts to disagree and look at a situation and going, this is not okay, and what can I do about it? That's not what you teach somebody if you teach him from young on, this is the way it is, you buckle down, because I say so. 12, 14, 16, 18 years of that, he knows he shouldn't think, he can't think, his thoughts aren't of any value, and besides it hurts when you do. Yeah? That's not a good lesson. Yeah? Okay. In a relatively short time, the treatment he gets, the student, the kid, so checks him that he will revolt. Very little 3-, 4-year-olds are already revolting big time because they've been checked. Don't touch, don't do that, can't do that. No, no, sit, no. That will do it. His revolt can be intensified until he is a terror to have around. Seen those? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Train him, control him, and you'll lose his love. You've lost the child forever that you seek to control and own. You see that in love affairs, if one tries to control and own the other, invariably they split up. Right? Isn't that real? Again, no difference with kids, right? This is a whole exercise in looking at children as if they were people, just imagine. Permit a child to sit on your lap. This is a little exercise, and I'm going to ask you to do it at home. It's amazing. Permit a child to sit on your lap. He'll sit there, contented. Now put your arms around him and constrain him to sit there. Do this even though he wasn't even trying to leave. Instantly, he'll squirm. He'll fight to get away from you. He'll get angry. He'll cry. Now recall now, he was happy before you started to hold him. You should actually make this experiment at home. Will you do it? You've already actually noticed this, right? I mean, it's wild, huh? But he sat there self-determinedly. He chose to sit there when he had to sit there. it was worth it to him to have a fight with Mom in exchange for being self-determined. See how key this apparently is to people. Self-determined. I determined something. That means I'm somebody. I'm not a robot. I'm not a nothing. That is the route to survival. I don't care what it costs me. I have to be self-determined. They know that somehow. Okay. Your effort to mold, train, control this child in general, react on him exactly like trying to hold him on your lap. Yeah? Yeah. Of course, you will have difficulty if this child of yours has already been trained, controlled, ordered about, denied his own possession. In mid-flight, you change your tactics. You try to give him his freedom. He's so suspicious of you, he will have a terrible time trying to adjust. Because he can't think with this, right? But he'll get over it. You persist, okay? The transition period will be difficult, but at the end you will have a well-ordered, well-trained, sociable child, thoughtful of you, can you imagine? And very important to you, a child who loves you.
One of the things I learned in the lecture is to allow that child, that individual, to experience life and to help them move along.
She's a very self-determined kid. She knows what she wants. She's very strong. My daughter is my best friend.
I'm a physician and I'm a researcher. So before my PhD, I studied psychology. That was what I studied. So I researched the statistics there, you know. I was very interested in the mind, how to make people happy and productive, and especially raising happy, productive children who are competent. And from a purely statistical standpoint, I had to keep looking. Yoka is amazing. She's very inspiring. She gets you to really, really understand it quickly so that you can just go apply it. We don't have any problems with her. She's happy. She's always curious. She's very mature, has a tremendous presence. She's very responsible. She cleans the house. She hasn't even turned 4 years old yet.